You know, when you look at a massive, towering skyscraper,
Yeah.
your eyes are immediately drawn to the glass.
Oh, absolutely. The glass, the steel, how it catches the sunlight.
Exactly. You just see the surface. But you never really think about the thousands of tons of concrete that are buried deep underground in the dark.
Right, the foundation.
Yeah. And yet, if that hidden foundation cracks, or, I mean, if it was poured just slightly off level, that beautiful glass tower is going to tilt, and eventually it's going to collapse.
Because the invisible structure always dictates the fate of the visible structure.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
that is a universal rule of engineering, sure, but it is an even more absolute rule of human psychology.
Totally.
We spend all our time, like, agonizing over the visible
Yes.
structure, you know? Our jobs, our relationships, our bank accounts.
Our day-to-day stress.
Right, all while completely ignoring the foundation that's buried in the dark.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we apply that engineering principle to the human brain, we arrive at the central premise of Dr. Joseph Murphy's foundational work.
And frankly, the core thesis of a lot of modern behavioral psychology.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is this absolute distinction between your conscious and your subconscious mind. It's like the single most critical mechanism to understand if you want to upgrade your life.
It really is.
We're talking about the ultimate operating system of your brain here. So the conscious mind might be the one, drafting the blueprints and picking out the curtains.
The fun stuff.
Right. But the subconscious is the silent, relentless construction crew that is actually out there pouring the concrete.
And for a lot of people, sadly, that crew is actively building a prison instead of a penthouse.
Oof. Yeah. That's a heavy way to put it, but it's true.
It's the bedrock of everything we do. And I mean, we don't need to rehash the basic definitions here.
No. Anyone listening to this deep dive already knows the conscious mind is the analytical, waking self, right?
Right. Well, the subconscious runs all those background processes. But we really have to examine the protocol between the two.
The communication layer.
Exactly. The conscious mind acts as the watchman at the gate. It evaluates things, it argues, it filters.
It's the skeptic.
Yes. But the subconscious mind possesses zero analytical capacity. None.
Wow. Zero.
Zero. It is highly receptive and it does not argue. It simply accepts whatever the conscious mind feeds it as undeniable reality.
And then it just builds it.
Right. It mobilizes your entire nervous system to make that reality happen.
I always come back to a specific nautical analogy to visualize this because I think it highlights the danger of that protocol.
Okay, let's hear it.
So imagine your conscious mind is the captain standing up on the bridge of a massive ocean liner.
Okay.
The captain has the binoculars, the charts, the radio. They see everything.
Right.
But way below deck, in the dark, is the subconscious mind. It's the massive engine room.
Ah, I like this.
Right. And the crew down there, they cannot see the ocean. They can't see the iceberg approaching. All they do is blindly follow the orders coming down the pipe from the captain.
They're just shoveling coal.
Exactly. So if the captain accidentally calls for, full speed ahead straight into a reef, the engine room doesn't question the logic.
They can't.
Right. They just shovel more coal into the furnace and drive that ship forward. They don't care if the destination is a tropical island or a catastrophic disaster.
What's fascinating here is the sheer mechanical indifference of that engine room.
Indifference, yeah, that's the word.
Your subconscious lacks a filtering mechanism for truth versus fiction. It just doesn't have one.
It doesn't know if you're joking.
Exactly. It doesn't have a sense of humor, it doesn't understand sarcasm, and crucially, your nervous system does not know the difference between a real, physical threat and a purely imagined one.
Which is terrifying if you think about it.
It is. Because if the captain constantly feeds the engine room instructions like, I am destined to fail, or people always betray me, the subconscious simply registers that as a command.
Like order received.
Yeah.
Deploying resources.
Exactly. It then begins building that negative reality by actively altering your body language, shifting your attention to perceive threats, and guiding you toward choices that just confirm the negative belief.
It's deeply unsettling when you consider how carelessly we throw commands down that pipe every single day.
So constantly.
Like those offhand, self-deprecating comments we make in the mirror, they aren't just thoughts.
No, they are literal lines of code.
Right. Being executed by a system that never sleeps.
Which is really the entire psychological weight of Dr. Murphy's thesis. You are actively programming your reality with every sustained conscious thought.
Because the subconscious doesn't care if the blueprint is for a mansion or a shack.
It just builds whatever you hand it.
Okay, so if the subconscious is just blindly following orders down there in the dark, What happens when we intentionally hack the command chain?
That changes everything.
Right? Like if we feed it highly specific, elevated commands, does the ship just magically arrive at the destination?
This is where we get into the popular stuff.
Yeah, this leads us straight into concepts like manifestation, the law of attraction, or that idea, um, what is it, Sakoti high, dreams come true.
Right. The mantra is usually some variation of the mind is everything.
But here's where it gets really interesting, and I have to push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
Does this cross the line into magical thinking?
Ah.
I mean, the idea that you can just sit on your couch, visualize a Ferrari, and the universe just drops it in your driveway is frankly absurd.
Completely absurd.
Right. So is there an actual grounded neurological mechanism at play here that changes our actions, or are we just deluding ourselves?
No, it's a critical distinction to make because the pop culture version of manifestation is often reduced to, like, wishful thinking.
Just closing your eyes and hoping.
Right. Visualizing a sports car and waiting for a miracle is a fundamental misunderstanding of the psychology.
Okay.
True manifestation is not about bending the universe to your will. It is about bending your own deeply entrenched behavior to recognize the universe's existing opportunities.
Oh, that's a great way to frame it.
And the mechanism behind this is entirely neurological. It's specifically centered around a network in the brain called the reticular activating system, or the RAS.
The RAS, the ultimate bouncer of the brain.
Precisely. Because at any given second, your senses are bombarded with millions of bits of information.
Just constant noise.
Constant. But your conscious mind can only process roughly like 40 to 50 bits per second.
Wait, really? That's it?
That's it. If you processed everything, your brain would literally overheat and you'd go insane.
Okay, so how does it choose?
So the RAS acts as a spam filter. It only lets through information that your subconscious has already deemed important to your survival or aligned with your deeply held beliefs.
And everything else.
Everything else is just ignored, deleted.
Which totally explains the classic red car phenomenon.
Yes. Perfect example.
Right, like you buy a red car and suddenly you see that exact model everywhere on the highway. They didn't just magically spawn into existence.
Eh,
Your RAS just recoded that specific car from spam to important.
exactly. So it finally let the visual data through to your conscious awareness.
And that is the secret engine behind manifestation, isn't it?
That's it. When you intensely and repeatedly focus your conscious mind on a specific goal.
Like building a business or finding a healthy relationship.
Right. You are manually reprogramming the RAS.
You're telling the engine room, hey, this specific type of opportunity is now critical to our survival.
Yes. And suddenly you start noticing resources, conversations, and pathways that were always right in front of you.
But they were previously filtered out by your brain because it didn't think they mattered.
Exactly. That reframes the whole concept, doesn't it?
Totally. Manifestation isn't a magic spell at all. It's a targeting system.
Yes. When your subconscious truly believes you are a successful person, your automatic behaviors just change.
You carry yourself differently. You speak with more authority.
You take calculated risks because your brain has stopped filtering them out as danger and started highlighting them as pathways.
You align the captain in the engine room.
Bingo. And when that internal conflict is resolved, your daily actions naturally move you toward the goal without the agonizing friction of, like, conscious willpower.
Well, let's put that alignment to the ultimate stress test then.
Okay.
Because we can talk about theoretical goals all day, but how does this hold up when we introduce the most emotionally charged, high-stakes variable in modern life?
I think I know where you're going with this.
I'm talking about money.
Yeah,
Money changes everything.
it does. When we look at wealth psychology, specifically concepts rooted in Napoleon Hill's work on growing rich with the mind, the statistics are just brutal.
Very brutal.
Something like 90% of people fundamentally fail with money. They live paycheck to paycheck or they're drowning in debt.
And it's clearly not because 90% of people lack basic math skills.
No, conscious accounting skills have very little to do with financial success. The failure rate is almost entirely driven by a deeply ingrained, highly conflicted subconscious psychology of money.
Right. I look at it as a massive glitch in the command chain.
How so?
Well, the captain is up on the bridge yelling, I want to be wealthy, go forward.
Right.
But the engine room was programmed decades ago during childhood to believe things like, money is the root of all evil, or rich people are greedy.
Or even just associating money with the stress of parents fighting over bills at the kitchen table.
Exactly. If money was a source of stress in your formative years, Your subconscious nervous system links wealth with danger,
And what's the engine room's primary directive?
survival and safety.
Right, always. So you have a catastrophic conflict.
Right, because the conscious mind tries to accumulate money.
But the moment you get a little ahead, your nervous system triggers a low-level fight-or-flight response.
Wow. So the subconscious creates an overwhelming urge to sabotage the wealth just to return to a baseline of perceived safety.
Yes. Is that why people suddenly make terrible investments or, like, splurge on expensive cars they can't afford the minute they get a bonus?
Yes. It's not just a bad habit. It's a subconscious, self-soothing mechanism.
That's wild.
They are literally trying to relieve the neurological stress of holding on to money by getting rid of it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the bad financial habits are merely the symptoms.
The subconscious belief is the underlying disease.
Exactly. You are actively fighting your own survival instincts. And this becomes glaringly obvious when you contrast the baseline functioning of a struggling brain with what is often termed the billionaire's brain.
The billionaire's brain concept is fascinating because it debunks the myth of innate genius.
Right. It's not about being a math prodigy.
No. The defining characteristic isn't a higher IQ or better spreadsheet skills. It's an entirely different subconscious operating system.
One that is heavily reliant on extreme focus and the aggressive protection of cognitive bandwidth.
Right. Look at morning routines, for example.
Oh, the first hour of your waking life sets the neurological tone for the next 16 hours.
Without fail.
An unprogrammed mind wakes up, immediately grabs a smartphone, checks the news, scrolls through social media, reads emails.
And in doing so, they are instantly flooding the engine room with cortisol and dopamine spikes.
Exactly. They are programming their subconscious for reactive panic, comparison, and defense literally before they've even gotten out of bed.
Danger. React. Survive. That's the order they send down the pipe at 7 a.m.
Right. But the billionaire's brain utilizes the morning routine to deliberately set the terms of engagement.
Okay, so what are they doing differently?
Well, whether it involves meditation, exercise, or reviewing primary goals, the specific activity actually matters less than the underlying neurological mechanism.
So it's not about the ice bath specifically.
No. It's that they are activating their executive control network and calmly giving the subconscious engine room clear, organized instructions built on focus and abundance.
They dictate the day. They do not let the day dictate them.
Precisely. And a huge part of protecting that operating system is the avoidance of addiction.
And we aren't just talking about chemical dependencies here.
No, we're talking about addiction to distraction. The constant need for cheap dopamine hits from our screens or manufactured drama.
If you are constantly seeking an escape through distraction, it is a massive red flag.
It means your conscious mind is overwhelmed by the reality your engine room is building.
And instead of taking the wheel and changing the orders, you're just numbing yourself.
Because distraction pacifies the mind, but focus directs it.
So true. The chasm between the 90% who struggle and the 10% who thrive is ultimately decided by who is actually writing the code for their own mind.
If you don't program your subconscious, the external world will happily program it for you.
And usually in a way that serves their interests, not yours.
Always.
So we've identified the massive vulnerability in the foundation. We know the engine room is running on corrupted code that filters out opportunity and self-sabotages our success.
Right. The diagnosis is clear.
So how do we actually fix it? How do we walk down into the dark and rewrite the protocol?
Because this isn't like a one-time software update.
Right. It requires daily, practical mechanics.
Reprogramming is a sustained practice of neuroplasticity. We have to carve new neural pathways.
Okay, give us the tools.
One of the most effective frameworks involves daily, non-negotiable commitments, specifically a triad.
The triad.
First, visualization to set the target. Second, gratitude to shift the nervous system from a state of threat to a state of abundance.
Lowering that cortisol.
Exactly. And third, crucial, definitive physical action.
Why this physical action?
Because the physical action is necessary to provide tangible proof to the subconscious that the new reality is actually happening.
Okay, that makes sense. But the technique that completely blew my mind, because it sounds like a biological cheat
I don't know
code,
which one you're going to say.
is the concept of building confidence while you sleep, utilizing the hypnagogic state.
Oh, it is arguably the most efficient application of Dr. Murphy's principles.
wild.
You have to remember the biological limitation here. The conscious mind gets fatigued,
Right. The captain has to go to sleep.
but the subconscious engine room never sleeps.
Hmm.
It processes data, regulates your organs, and consolidates memories 24/7.
So how do we exploit that shift change?
The hypnagogic state is that brief, drowsy window right before you cross over into deep sleep.
When you're kind of half awake, half asleep.
Exactly. Neurologically, your brain waves are slowing down from waking beta waves into alpha and theta waves.
Okay.
The critical argumentative faculty of your conscious mind is powering down. The watchman at the gate is finally asleep.
So the door is open.
The door is wide open. If you use those 5 to 10 minutes to vividly visualize your goals or feed yourself specific affirmations of success and calm,
Those positive commands encounter zero resistance.
zero. They slip straight past the gatekeeper and sink directly into the subconscious.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
You're literally assigning your mind homework. You're sliding the new architectural blueprints under the door while the guard is snoring, and the engine crew spends the next 8 hours studying them.
That is exactly what is happening on a synaptic level. You are marinating your neural networks in the sensation of success.
So over time, you wake up with an unexplainable baseline of confidence.
Because your subconscious spent the entire night processing a reality where you are already capable and secure.
Okay, so alongside that nocturnal hacking, there is a paradigm shift for our waking hours that really forces you to look in the mirror.
Oh, definitely.
The concept that the real power is not reacting.
Right.
It suggests that the ultimate metric of a mastered mind isn't how much money you've manifested, but how much control you have over your emotional volatility.
Because volatility is the hallmark of an unprogrammed mind.
Right, like when someone insults you or a deal falls through.
An unprogrammed mind is entirely at the mercy of that external trigger. The subconscious wildly fires off survival responses: anger, panic, despair.
But as you reprogram your mind with these principles, you begin to build a neurological buffer.
You widen the gap between a stimulus and your response.
So what does this all mean? To me, it highlights a beautiful paradox in human psychology.
Let's hear it.
We spend all this time talking about how to take massive action to change our lives. But the ultimate display of power might actually be learning how not to act.
Wow. Yes.
It's mastering the pause. That tiny fraction of a second where you hold the trigger, evaluate the reality, and refuse to let your engine room flood the ship with panic.
If you own that pause, you own your entire reality.
Yes.
That is profound because a reprogrammed subconscious mind observes chaos, calculates the variables, and chooses a response aligned with its long-term programming.
Not at short-term panic.
Right. And this raises an important question for you listening right now. Analyze your resting state.
Just your default.
Yeah. When you are sitting in traffic or waiting in line, is your default state one of low-grade anxiety and defensiveness?
Or is it a state of focused calm?
Because your resting state is the diagnostic readout of your current subconscious programming.
That's a gut check right there. And look, before anyone gets overwhelmed by the pressure of perfectly policing every single thought,
Which is impossible, by the way.
right, and perfectly optimizing their resting state, which frankly sounds like a recipe for a nervous breakdown.
We have to talk about the pressure release valve.
Yes, the concept of wabi-sabi.
Yes, the Japanese philosophy of embracing the imperfect, the impermanent, and the incomplete.
It is a vital psychological counterbalance.
Essential, because if you become neurotically obsessed with perfectly manifesting every detail of your life, you are generating massive amounts of anxiety.
And as we just discussed, anxiety programs the engine room with a sense of lack and fear.
Exactly. So wabi-sabi is the antidote to the poison of perfectionism.
It tells us to set our goals, command the engine room with clarity, but to gracefully accept the messy, unpredictable nature of the journey.
It lowers the cortisol. It allows you to strive for that billionaire's brain, to aggressively pursue financial and personal freedom without tying your baseline happiness to a flawless execution.
It is the harmonization of relentless ambition with radical acceptance.
Which is really the only sustainable way to live.
And that is the perfect place to land the plane. We have journeyed deep into the foundation today.
We really have.
We started by recognizing the severe divide between the conscious mind, the captain on the bridge, and the subconscious mind, the blind, powerful engine room below deck.
We explored how the reticular activating system literally filters our reality to match our inner beliefs.
Proving that manifestation isn't magic, it's neurology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We stress tested this against the psychology of money, realizing that financial self-sabotage is just a misaligned survival instinct.
And finally, we laid out the tools to fix the code, protecting our mornings, exploiting the hypnagogic state, and mastering the pause between trigger and reaction.
It requires a complete architectural overhaul of how you perceive your own agency in the world.
It really does.
But before we close, there is one final, slightly provocative concept buried in the deep end of this psychology that I want to leave you with.
Oh, I am ready. Lay it on us.
So, throughout history, we have studied the darker arts of behavioral psychology. Things like Machiavellian reverse psychology and the intricate art of manipulation.
Right. The dark stuff.
Yeah. These are strategic fine work designed to bypass a person's conscious defenses and secretly orchestrate their behavior without them ever realizing they are being controlled.
Right, and we normally view these tactics as external weapons
Yeah.
used on other people.
Exactly. But if we take everything we've just discussed, right, bypassing the critical faculty, using the hypnagogic state to slip commands past the gatekeepers, altering our own environmental triggers to force a behavioral outcome,
Okay.
it begs a staggering question.
What is it?
Is the entire practice of reprogramming our subconscious mind simply us mastering the brilliant Machiavellian art of manipulating ourselves?
Oh, wow.
Are we just using dark psychology on our own engine room to trick our bodies into becoming the people we desperately want to be?
That is wild. We are the puppet masters of our own nervous system.
Essentially, yes.
That completely flips the entire self-help narrative on its head. That is an incredibly mind-bending concept to chew on.
I thought you'd like that one.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you navigate the rest of your day, look at the skyscrapers around you, think about the concrete foundation beneath your feet, and most importantly, pay very close attention to the orders you are sending down into the dark. We'll catch you next time.